Right guys, we have some new reports suggesting the iPhone 15 Pro series might be the only ones getting Thunderbolt ports, and so let's delve into it. So this comes from pretty credible source Minchiko, and he tells us the iPhone 15 and 15 Plus are gonna get the Type-C ports, but they're gonna be limited to USB 2.0 speeds, essentially the same as Lightning, but of course, the Pro models, those should get Thunderbolt. Now Quo says the 15 Pros should at least get USB 3.2 or Thunderbolt 3, which of course is a major upgrade. And for comparison, USB 2.0 speeds are limited to 480 megabytes per second, whereas of course, with the USB 3.2 you get 20 gigs per second, and Thunderbolt 3 gives us an even higher 40 gigs per second. And so yeah, this is going to be a game changer because obviously we have ProRes video with the iPhones, and while the output's great, transferring this is a pain because of the Lightning port, and so improving the transfer speeds by giving us Thunderbolt on the iPhone is going to be appreciated. Now the non-pros sticking to the basic USB 2.0 speeds is a bummer, but also does make sense because we saw Apple do this with the iPad 10, they crippled the port on that. Even though it got the USB C upgrades, the speeds of the ports were near identical to the iPad 9's Lightning ports, and ultimately the regular models getting Thunderbolts is kinda useless because they do not support ProRAW or ProRes, and most buying these phones are not going to be playing around with that in the first place, and so yes, this downgrade actually does make sense. And ultimately, like we saw this year, Apple wants to upsell you to the Pro models, and so differentiating the regular models and the Pro models even further with the 15 series does make sense. Now do remember there has been some conflicting reports regarding USB C on the iPhone in the first place. While Quo and Gurman believe that because of the EU regulation we're going to see the Type-C port, there is a loophole that Apple can use with the regulation and go portless instead. Since the law does say that if the device does have wide charging it should have a Type-C port, and Apple can simply work around this by going portless, hence the iPhone no longer has wide charging, so of course it would be exempt from this. And yeah, maybe that could be the case, Johnny. I've always wanted a completely portless device, and so maybe Apple's going to fulfill his goal with the 15 series. But personally, I still have my doubts because, number one, the whole purpose of this regulation is of course to create a common standard for all smartphones, and so Apple going portless is absolutely going to disrupt that. But also do remember there are still limitations to portless devices. For example, as I said earlier, ProRes video, that's a big thing for the Pro models, and so transferring that would be near impossible and would be a pain to use. And so yes, I still think Apple's going to give us Type-C with the iPhone. However, maybe as Apple improves their wireless tech, we could see Apple go portless. And plus, let's be honest guys, as of late, Apple's been listening to our feedback. We saw this recently with the always on display on the 14 Pros, where they've now enabled a black background like many of us have requested. And so yes, when many of us are vocal about wanting a Type-C port, I think that's going to be the case. Anyways, let's delve into your questions. So Dominic, regarding the lack of a quad camera design, says that would be disappointing to Apple for not giving the 15 Ultra a quad camera design because Apple usually copies Samsung on what they do on their smartphones. The triple camera design has been there since the iPhone 11 Pro, and Apple does change their design every 3 years. We'll see if this does happen, but it's too early to say since it's not even 2023 yet. But in a couple of months from now on, we should know more accurate details on the next generation iPhone. So I first want to comment on your statement regarding Apple usually copying Samsung with their smartphones, and that's not entirely the case. I know Apple does copy the occasional feature from Android like many other companies, but if we're keeping tally, Samsung is the one that mainly copies Apple, and the triple camera design was not something from Samsung. That was a design we first saw with the iPhones, and so I'm not exactly sure why you think this. Also, I'm not sure why you're fixated on a quad camera design because who cares how the iPhone looks on the back? You're not going to be looking at the back for the most part. And so yes, if the triple camera works, why change it up? If anything, Apple should focus on reducing the camera bump of the lenses than giving us another lens on the back. And yes, I know that Samsung has 2 telephoto sensors, but I think Apple cares more about simplicity and would rather give us one periscope lens that replaces the existing 3x. So yes, I just don't see why Apple should go for a quad camera lens with the 15 series Why change things up for the sake of change? That's what Android manufacturers do on a regular basis, and I'm not a fan of that. Yes, the iPhone might be boring compared to those phones, but ultimately it's giving you a refined and reliable experience. And so yes, we don't need to change things just for the sake of change. And yes, I'm aware there is a 3-year design cycle for the iPhones, but do remember that does not mean we're definitely getting a redesign on the back. There could be other elements they change instead, like the shape of the body, they did that with the 12 series, or of course any changes on the front. So Marius says, I think the lower price of the base iPhone 15, $700 like iPhone 11 and A17 chip, dynamic island, better battery life, a 48MP camera, 90Hz liquid motion display, and for colors, because we buy this for color, would be a perfect Kim grey car color, iPhone 11 green, or Nike Volt green color, and the screen sizes to be 5.8 inches and 6.5 inches will make this a killer over the iPhone 14 series. Now, I didn't fully get what Kim grey car color means, but otherwise, yes, we could see a low price. No, there's not going to be an A17 chip, it's still going to be the A16, yes, there should be the island, hopefully better battery life, hopefully the 48MP sensor, but no, there's not going to be 90Hz, that would be nice, but I doubt Apple's going to give us that. And colours wise, I would love to see the iPhone 11 green, I was a fan of that, and obviously I've been waiting for an orange iPhone for years. Now sizes wise, I would love to see Apple give us a 5.8 inch iPhone again, that size was perfect, but I do doubt it because Apple rarely goes back to older size options for their flagship models, and so I think it's going to be 6.1 inches and 6.7 inches like the 14 series. And ultimately, I know what you're describing is the perfect base iPhone, but of course, Apple wants you buying the Pro models instead, and so do remember there's still going to be compromises. So Flaming Killer MC says, no way Apple is going to put the 48MP sensor on the regular models, since the sensor right now does push you to get the Pros. And yeah, that's a fair point, but even if the regular models do get this, there are still other upgrades that could push people towards the Pros. For example, periscope zoom, we should see that with the 15 series, Thunderbolt, ProRes video, 120Hz, a better build, the better chip, etc, etc. So I think there's plenty of other reasons you could consider the Pro models, even if the regular models got the sensor upgrades. Anyways, that's about it for my thoughts, but of course, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Anyways, thank you for watching guys, make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumours. Check out the video above on details regarding Apple's VR headset, and on that note, see ya peeps.